Hey y'all, Kevin Hutchison here with Realty Austin, and I am grateful to be a part of Stories Inside the Man Cave, a homegrown podcast just like my own business. We had a couple pretty significant injuries Saturday, losing junior Angilau and Isaiah Neyor to season-ending injuries.
Wow, Danny Davis sacrificing a Thursday night. And I've got to give you, Danny, by the way, a fabulous journalist from the Austin American-Statesman, Longhorn beat writer. I still haven't paid the $30 parking ticket to UT. And I've got to compliment you. Not many people can pull this off, but the beard is definitely you.
This is just called my barber got out of the game, and I am hesitant to change and I guess a little lazy and don't want to go find another one, but that season opener is coming up, so this is going to have to get trimmed down because this is not necessarily a press box professional. So we're going to the last couple of weeks with this mess, but it is what it is.
Hey, it looks good. It's but yeah, this is you'll see a different Danny when the kickoff of the season actually begins. So Camp Hook'em in August, installment number 3, brought to you by our guy Kevin Hutchison of Realty Austin. Just check out his website and reach out to him. He'll help you navigate through the tough process that is of purchasing a home from Waco to San Antonio. Now, Danny, you heard, and you were I know you were there for the scrimmage over the weekend. Some significant season-ending injuries. I mean, which one do you think will be the most impactful? I mean, I could say all of them, but for you, I mean, it's really disappointing when you lose a guy, Neyor, who's going to be a pretty significant contributor on offense.
Yeah, well, first off, Sean, you should know that we were not at the scrimmage because they keep those things
locked
up like Fort Knox. But definitely we've all heard about it. I would say Junior's injury is probably the more significant. I mean, Isaiah, it's bad on paper, but we don't really know what he was in this offense since he was a transfer. I mean, we saw that really nice long touchdown pass in the spring game, but we'd yet to actually see in a game. So, I mean, can you really lose something you never had, in a way? Obviously, Texas had big hopes from him in their offense, and he was a projected starter. But, that receiving room still has a stud, and Xavier Worthy still has a stud, and Jordan Whittington. And there's lots of nice young pieces that are going to have to grow up a little bit quicker now. But, I mean, Junior was an experienced lineman, and although there's a lot of hype on these freshmen and, the future in the trenches looks nice, I mean, you still kind of want that experience. And he's a versatile guy who could play guard, could play center if something happened to Jake Majors. And so that definitely hurts him, especially since Alabama's going to be a little tough in the trenches. And you were kind of like a experienced guy down there for week 2. So I would say just from his experience standpoint, a leadership standpoint, he's one of the voices on the team. Junior is probably the bigger impact, although, Isaiah Neyor, that's definitely not something Texas wanted to see.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. You're talking about the different positions. Junior Angilau, a key component, because we all know that the offensive line has been an inconsistent, developed issue for the Longhorns for a while. They've had talent, but that's was the issue last year for sure. You talk about all the freshmen that they brought in, but with Junior's injury, from my understanding, a lot of these guys cross-train, meaning center, guard, and tackle, and depending on which side of the line, the strong side or the quick side or weak side that is, Coach Sark, I mean, he talked about that, which being more significant, but he talked about the depth at center, which kind of shocked me. And this is what Sark had to say about that.
I still feel comfortable about Cole Hudson being able to play center. I still feel pretty good about Connor Robertson being able to play center, and Logan Parr has center experience. So we're not, we came into camp very deep at that position intentionally. So I don't think we're in dire straits anywhere. But what it does, it puts our young players in a position to see who can step up. And
so from your observation and what you know, and for, the incoming freshman and who is returning, Junior is a big loss. And I can't believe I didn't state that first, but you're absolutely right. That old line is still a work in progress. But what Sark mentioned, and I want your opinion on how important that center is, because all offensive line positions get overlooked because they're not that fancy skill position.
I mean, the center is, I guess, the quarterback of the offensive line per se. Obviously, it's an important position, snapping the ball, depending on what line it is, calling out protections, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, it's better to have an experienced center than a freshman. But, at some point, all these linemen are freshmen. All of them have to grow up. Jake Majors started as a freshman, I believe. So he, at some point, was that young guy. And so if something happens to Jake, Connor's a freshman, Cole's a freshman, Logan's a young guy. So those guys behind him are going to have to, grow up very quickly if something does happen and they need to test that depth. Well, while Steve was confident in the depth he has, it's still a lot of inexperience behind Jake Majors. So, I'm sure Steve and Coach Flood and all those coaches over there that work with the offensive line are knocking on wood every time that they talk about the depth over there, because it's nice to have depth. I'm sure it'd be even nicer if they didn't need to use it. I'm sure they would be quite happy if Jake Majors plays the 13, 14 games this season that they are hoping to play.
Now, for you, I mean, we're not overlooking Roschon Johnson. A lot less significant injury as far as the type of injury. So he was at the open practice the other night, and he was walking around, obviously not suited up to play. But what are you hearing, or do you know anything that leads you to believe that he may be? Because the fans, they want to see him play against Alabama. Do you have any information maybe that's indicative that he'll be able to return? Roschon, that is, for the Alabama game?
I mean, Steve seemed pretty confident that Roschon and some of the other guys that they've mentioned that got a little banged up in that scrimmage, aside from the season-ending injuries, be ready for the ULM game. I don't know if Roschon's going to get in that game and get 10, 15 carries, but they seem at least pretty confident. And I think if you're a Texas fan, just kind of seeing him out there, even though he wasn't doing the drills, at least out at practice, kind of participating in the way that he could participate. I think that's a confidence booster. If he was over there in shorts and a t-shirt, that wouldn't have been a good sign, and he wasn't. So, I'll take Steve at his word that they expect him to be ready in 3 weeks or whatever it is for the ULM game. And, even if he's not at full strength, maybe get him out there, get him, up to game speed, and then have him ready for what I'm sure is going to be a busy day for him in number 5 the next week against Alabama.
No doubt about it. It's interesting. I mean, injuries happen. It's all part of it. But if you're a fan, or you're even Sarkisian or a member of the staff, you almost want to recommend playing flag football for the rest of the way. Because some of those injuries, which is bizarre to me, and it happens, are non-contact injuries. And there's nothing you can do to prevent those. I mean, it's happened to me. I'll admit it. I slipped off of a curb one time and sprained an ankle. I'm just throwing that out there. Anything like that can happen.
I'm sure we all of us journalists have some unglamorous story of us getting injured, and it's not nearly as impressive as a football player, having some gruesome injury that they can, share as a war story. We're kind of lame over with the journalism building in our injuries. But yeah, I mean, football's a physical game. Obviously you don't hit quarterbacks during practices and stuff like that, but you can get hurt non-contact. You can get hurt, having contact. I don't know if it's necessarily you want to not have any contact because, once that season kicks off on September 3rd, they're not going to be playing non-contact drills. So, you need to kind of get used to being hit. You need to get used to hitting people. So, people are going to get injured. It happens, and you just cross your fingers and hope those injuries don't pile up too much. And I mean, there are certain precautions you can take to make sure that those injuries don't pile up. But, it's just part of the game. I think every camp, there's at some point where there's, an injury that wasn't expected and people kind of start panicking and get worried about the season. But, it is what it is. I don't think there's a camp in the country that hasn't had some kind of injury report that has worried that fan base.
Oh, it happens. It's happening all across the country, even in Missoula, Montana, to Nacogdoches, Texas. Injuries are happening in camp. All right, so I know this is a repetitive subject, but if you log on Twitter anywhere, it's always focused on the quarterback. As recently as Buechele and Shane Buechele and Sam Ehlinger, that whole situation, I remember that August of leading up to, I think it was either 2017, 2018. Who's it going to be? Every day. Well, we have this same case now, and it's a good problem to have. Card and Ewers, and there seems to be the trend here in the last 2 days. Are you buying that Card, Hudson Card's winning that battle as of the recording of this podcast?
I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't really buy nothing against the reporters, the fine reporters that are in this media corps. I don't really necessarily buy all these camp reports because these guys are being fed information by their sources who may have a different perspective than Steve Sarkisian have, or may have an agenda that they want to push, unless they're talking to Steve Sarkisian themselves or AJ Milwee, the quarterback coach, which who knows, maybe they are. I don't really know if we can completely take those reports verbatim. And I'm not at every practice, and even if I was, I don't know if what I judge to see, me and you could look at the exact same play and have two completely different,
absolutely, always
two different assessments of it. From what I've seen in practices and that open practice, I don't think either quarterback is necessarily standing out above the other one. I thought both of them looked very inconsistent on Tuesday night when we got to see them for an extended period of time. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think it's clear that the fans want Quinn Ewers to start. I thought that was very clear on Tuesday night. Quinn could have overthrown, not saying he did, but he could have overthrown a receiver by 30 yards, and the entire stands would have groaned in unison because they were hoping for a connection. And then Hudson could have gone out there, and once again, not saying that he did this, had a beautiful behind the back touchdown pass with his eyes blinded, and everyone in the stands have been like, okay, congratulations.
It's so bizarre.
It's clear that, Quinn, in part because, these Texas fans have seen Hudson play, although I don't think judging him by last year is necessarily fair.
No.
But, Quinn is the new kid. He's the one that, he's the one that got away with that recruiting fiasco a couple years ago. And, he's the 5-star guy, the perfect quarterback, according to some recruiting services. So, he's the unknown. And I think a lot of people are excited to see what he can do and are rooting for that. But as far as who's ahead, one man knows, and one man's going to make that decision. So we'll see when he actually makes it. But, it doesn't hurt to have both quarterbacks ready to go because, as we talked about, injuries happen. As Hudson knows, you can have a pretty bad game and lose your job. So, bad play happens. So we'll see. But, I think if anyone says that they know who's leading the quarterback race, they're full of themselves and trying to impress some people, because unless that guy is Steve Sarkisian, I don't think he may not even know at this point. I think he probably knows, but he may not be 100% sure at this point.
It's hard. You know, it's funny. You and I both have been through countless numbers of preseason camps, and whenever the quarterback is not decided, it is so repetitive, and it's hard to get information which is accurate enough to attribute our names to it. I think the one that obviously Buechele and Ellinger is one of those that was ongoing. But I remember 2007, Oklahoma, it was Sam Bradford, and there was Keith Nichols, who had ended up transferring to Michigan State, and then Halsey, it was his name. And it was 3 quarterbacks for the entire month of August, from spring camp all the way to August, every day. Just think about reporting on that every day. That's a lot of content, and to decide which one of the 3. And Sam Bradford really didn't emerge until after the spring. And that's so they're like, who is this guy? They redshirted from Putnam City North High School in Oklahoma City, and ends up winning the Heisman Trophy. But you know how that is. Position battles, when you have multiple, it is tiring, so to speak.
Yeah, and to be honest, I know everyone loves talking about quarterbacks, and it certainly pays the bills of the Statesman, and gives a lot of sound bites for everyone else. But it bores me. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I don't care. I mean,
love me some Danny Davis.
One of these guys is going to end up being the starter on September 3rd, and we'll see what they can do once there's someone who's not wearing the same colored jersey across from them. And once again, last year we saw what happened. Hudson was a starter, looked great in his first game, looked really bad in that second game, and Casey Thompson took the ball and ran with it.
Yeah.
That quarterback battle you referenced with Shane and Sam. They were essentially rotating starts the entire 2017 season because of injuries and whatnot. And so, you just think back to that, every second week of August, we get a snippet of practice, and we're like, oh, so-and-so looks that much better. They look that much good. They're commanding the offense, blah, blah, blah. It's just, a month later, it just doesn't matter.
No.
So, once again, I know it pays the bills. I know people love to read about it. People love to, make their own conjectures and, analysis, but, it's just such a tired process, and we do it every year. We're going to do it again next year when Arch Manning comes to campus, and whether it's Hudson or Quinn as a returning starter, maybe all 3 of them will be battling, and we can toss in Malik Murphy and Charles Wright and Ben Ballard. We'll have a 7-person battle for quarterbacks. Do it all over again.
Oh, hey, I'm still pulling.
Same dance, a different year. And once again, I'm thankful for it, because I like to eat and I like a roof over my head, but it's not, it's not something that really interests me. It's just part of the job.
Yeah, exactly. It's just content consumption. Here's Sark on what you mentioned, how he responded to the quarterback battle. And he basically mentioned the same. Both had great downs and then not so great downs, so to speak. You guys watching, listening, you be the judge of what Sark said right here about the quarterbacks.
Whether it was throws that maybe weren't where they needed to be at what time and with the right accuracy. I think we had a couple drops from a receiver standpoint that I know those guys would love to have back that could have created explosive plays. The running game obviously created some explosive plays for us. So I think offensively they're probably looking at we missed some ops. But that's good.
Yeah, it is good. But to Danny's point, that's good, but it just continues. We're dragging this out. But I understand it as a coach. They've got to wait up and probably until Monday of game week. Wouldn't you say this is probably be decided? And we may see rotating quarterbacks this year.
Who knows? We could go to, we're not talking to Steve tomorrow. On Friday, we're talking to some players, but it wouldn't surprise me if, next press conference or 2 press conferences from now, Steve makes an announcement. It wouldn't surprise me if we wait until the Thursday before game week. I don't really necessarily know what he's looking for as far as what he needs to see to pull that trigger. Because, I don't know. I mean, Quinn has been here since the spring. Hudson's obviously been here for 2 years. Is one more week, is one of these guys really going to separate themselves that much? Is one good week of practice going to make this decision, or is the entire body of work going back to when Quinn got to campus, what Hudson's done since he got here? Is that going to decide it? So I tend to believe Steve probably has a pretty good idea of what the decision he may want to make. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 minor things that he's waiting to make the call on, but I think it's probably just a matter now of when he decides to make that decision. I don't necessarily know if Hudson Card has a great practice on Friday. That's gonna be when Steve pulls the trigger. If Quinn, I mean, they have a scrimmage this weekend, so maybe that's the final thing. If Quinn goes out there and plays, that's what's going to do it. I would imagine that we have a body of work, and Steve probably knows what he's looking for, and we'll see when he actually pulls the trigger. But I'm a little skeptical that these last 16 days or whatever it is till countdown, that's going to be this decisive thing. But who knows? I don't know anything, so I could be very wrong on this.
We need to ask your son Charlie about it.
He probably has better analysis than I do, and I would guarantee his answers would be not nearly as long-winded.
Which at many times in certain situations, that's a quality, that's a good thing, that's a positive. Instead of TikToking random brainless TikTok video that I discover on TikTok, of course, I love Danny's feedback. It's usually pretty humorous on anything and everything, and we're going to go something as simple as college football predictions, projections, the modern day Nostradamus himself, Danny Davis. And it's going to be so I know I sent you this in an email, but we'll start from the bottom. Will our guys down in San Marcos, Texas State Bobcats, will they earn their first bowl bid this year?
Get me honest, Sean. I've looked at these predictions, and once again, this probably just says a lot about me. There's like one thing on here I care about, and Texas State and Texas A&M, unfortunately, do not make that list. I don't know nearly enough about the Aggies or Texas State. Obviously, Texas State has had their struggles, and if you're a fan of the Bobcats, you kind of want to see Jake Spavital, turn things around. I think if you're a fan of that program, you want to see that school invest more money into that program, because quite frankly, I think it's a little embarrassing that they have to borrow an indoor facility from the high school in town to this is a
that's bad
program, and that's embarrassing. So I mean, who knows? I mean, you sometimes that getting to that 6-win mark, that's just a matter of a few breaks going your way, and especially taking care of some of your non-conference games. I know they have to play Baylor this year, so obviously you don't expect them to win that game. So it's putting them a little bit behind the 8 ball there. But who knows? I mean, let's hope the Bobcats can get it done. My guy Kev, who covers them for us, he's been watching some bad football for a while. So for his sake,
does a great job though.
Hope he can have a season where he gets to a bowl game and gets to cover some fun football.
Texas A&M, would you say would you say greater or less, more or less than 9 wins for them this year?
I mean, it's tough to go into any SEC season and unless you're in say more than 9 wins for anyone that's not Alabama or Georgia, because once again, I mean, you can have a couple of bad weeks and you're completely behind behind the that projection. So I mean, I would say probably like a 8-win season's a nice bar to set, and if they can get past it, that's a really good season, and they're definitely capable of it. Jimbo's obviously doing a lot of good things, and there's a lot of reason to be excited about this class that they have coming in, and some of the fresh faces they have on that team. But I'm never going to go and predict a 9-10 win season for anyone in that conference. It's not Alabama or Georgia at the moment, and that's going to be disappointing for Texas fans when they get to that conference too, because I think the over/under is going to dip significantly for them when they're not playing in the Big 12 anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. Are you ready, or would you like to hold out on predicting UT's overall record?
I'll go. I mean, I think UT is a 9-3 team. Like, I firmly believe that they are going to be 2-1 after the non-conference schedule, and then it's just a matter of Big 12 play. And if they can win some of those close games that they just weren't able to do last year, I mean, they went 5-7, but if you cut out the fourth quarter, their record would have been a lot better. So if they could close some of those games, they can definitely be like a 1-2 loss team in Big 12 play. I mean, the Big 12 is not a powerhouse this year. Baylor's projected to win it, and Baylor lost a lot of talent from its team last year. Oklahoma, who knows what Oklahoma is going to be with a new quarterback and a new coaching staff. Oklahoma State has some talent issues, although they have a really good quarterback leading them, and we'll just see. I think this conference is wide open, so if these young Texas players grow up quickly and they hit on the quarterback, they definitely could be in the mix and only lose 1 or 2 games in conference play.
Yeah, that's legit. I love that. What about SEC and Big 12 championship games? Do you need more time, or you're leaning to, or you have kind of an idea who you think will be playing in those championship games?
So the SEC, I don't know my divisions well enough. I'm just going to pick Alabama and move on. And then, I mean, Big 12 championship, I'll go, I think Texas can reach the championship game, and I'll go with Oklahoma too.
Oklahoma and Texas.
I'll go Oklahoma and Texas. Obviously, not trying to disrespect the Bears or Oklahoma State and what they were able to accomplish last year, but I think talent-wise, those are the best two. I think Texas and Oklahoma roster-wise, and just, history-wise with Oklahoma, I would nod them. But, lots of question marks on all those top-tier teams. Maybe someone sneaks out of nowhere and Kansas State can make it wrong with our guy Deuce Vaughn, and we'll see.
How about 4-team college football playoff field? I don't think Clemson will be back. I mean, they obviously took a step back finally last year, but is this all Alabama again?
And obviously, it's Alabama. You got your Ohio State. I mean, Georgia has a good season. Georgia can sneak in there, and so then it's a matter of that third team and whether or not that's a Notre Dame or whoever comes out of the Pac-12, if they can have like a one loss undefeated record. So I'd say 2 teams from the SEC, Ohio State, and then whether it's a Pac-12 or maybe the Big 12 champion, if they're a 1 loss or no loss team, can get that 4th spot.
I'll answer reverse order, 4-team playoff. I want to go with, I don't know. I know Alabama, but I'm going to go with Alabama, of course. But I think from the other side, the SEC, I don't know. I'm starting to lean toward Arkansas taking a step up. Potentially.
If you want to place your money in Arkansas making the college football playoff, all the power to you. That's not a bet I'm going to make.
I'm not sold yet, but there will be a second SEC team. There's always will be if you're going to stay at 4 teams. Ohio State, I think, is going to have a much better year. And a wild card, because the Pac-12 is so weak, and I don't want it to happen, but I think Lincoln Riley can do something out west with all those new players.
That would definitely be interesting.
But I'm not saying it's going to happen, but as of right now, that's what I'm feeling. Big 12 championship, I'll take Kansas State and Oklahoma State in the championship. And then SEC championship, I'm with you. I think Alabama's that much better than everyone else this year. I think there's a lot of great teams in the SEC, obviously. I'm going with 8-4 for Texas, 9-3 for A&M. And I'll say Texas State gets to the 6-6 level. I don't know if it's good enough for a bowl because, well, it should be because there's 400 of them. And they shouldn't. They ought to just make a bowl game in Corpus Christi and just let them in there.
If they get to 6 wins, I feel pretty confident someone will find a spot for them.
You got to fill a spot. You got to fill all those spots. Oh, my God. So that makes the whole month of December fun, beginning with the conference championship games and of course all the bowl games every day. What as we close this out, Danny? What in your world? What's been a little positive development? Anything that could motivate people, maybe?
I mean, as most people know about me, I have a young son, and he's growing and developing, and I'm sure as anyone who's has had children and watched them grow up, it's a fascinating experience, especially with your first. And so every day he shows me something new, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm really, really enjoying that. So, I mean, that's what makes me happy. I'm sure it's what makes my wife happy. So even though this world is, enough to make you want to jump off a cliff sometimes, it's he definitely brings a smile to my face and makes a lot of this nonsense worth doing, and makes it a lot easier to put up with a lot of stuff, knowing he's at home and that he loves you unconditionally and thinks you're the coolest person in the world, even though there's a lot of Texas fans who will disagree with him, but it's that's what makes my life that's what makes my life worth living, him and obviously my wife. So I guess to answer your question, that's what that brings a smile to my face. I don't know if that brings a smile to other people's faces, my son and my wife, but at least they make me happy.
My brother, we'll wrap things up next week with your guy Jeffrey. And man, you guys, I appreciate you both for doing this. I know it's been a long month. It's a fun month, but it's a long month of all the content that you create, all the stories. Be sure to follow him on his Austin American-Statesman Twitter handle. Guy, Danny does great work, as well as your counterparts, your colleagues at the Austin American-Statesman. You guys do a bang-up job for Longhorn sports, and it's always something that I look forward to every morning. Sometimes it's at 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes it's at noon. It just depends what the day brings. But keep doing what you're doing, and you guys be sure to follow Danny. And, Danny, if you're up to it later in the football season, we'll circle back and have some more of these fun episodes.
Sounds good to me. I'm always around.
For Danny Davis from the Austin American-Statesman and the OG Man Cave boys, Harge, who couldn't join us tonight, and Coach Mo and Big Mike, we out.